Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Daily Motivations Podcast. I want to wish all of you a week filled with meaningful love and the possibility of gaining a profound understanding of your own self-worth, as it is one of the remarkable acts we can bestow upon ourselves. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. Feel free to leave your thoughts or comments. If you appreciate content like this and would like to support me, you can contribute via PayPal address in my description. Each contribution you make serves as a motivation to help further develop the quality of my content. As long as we haven't recognized the meanings, positions, and roles we hold, the contributions we make to this life, then our lives require many things to be perfected, at the very least in terms of personal satisfaction. Because no matter what you achieve, if you don't feel the significance of your presence in this life, it becomes quite challenging to find inner happiness. And this wish will also transition to the next step, which is delving into the theme of this video. Today, you can see the title above, which is about living with great meaning. That's the theme of this episode, of course. When I say that you're living with great meaning, I want to convey that to all of you who are listening to this episode. And it's likely that many of you will feel a certain reaction within yourselves. It's quite understandable. That reaction I mentioned is sometimes you don't know if you truly feel that your existence holds any meaning. For instance, using logic, you might say, yes, what I do every day is quite meaningful. I'm engaged in many positive activities. You could use your intellect, your reasoning, to convince yourself of that. But here's the thing, everyone. You place your hand over your heart, close your eyes, and try to feel it. Many times, you don't genuinely sense the significance of your existence in this life. That's when things start to feel rather lifeless, wouldn't you agree? Therefore, when I say that you are living a meaningful life, many people may not feel that way, so I will demonstrate it to show you. And I will prove it so you can feel it. Not just relying on logic to convince yourself, because that would be only a half-hearted belief. Now, I will also mention another aspect of this episode before delving into the content, to persuade you and make your heart believe that you are living a meaningful life. One thing I want to clarify about this video is, firstly, I'm not trying to flatter you. Rest assured, there's no need for me to flatter anyone. I have the freedom of my own will and don't need to flatter others. But what's even more important is that I'm not here to console you. Let me be clear about this, because there's no feeling worse in life than knowing that someone is pitying and consoling you, as if you're alive but don't feel valuable, don't feel satisfied. That's when people seek reasons to praise, seek reasons to console, and seek reasons to make others awkwardly feel that they are living a meaningful, valuable life. I don't do that, because it creates a very negative feeling, my friends. When I am in a difficult situation and I know the person in front of me is trying to reassure me that I'm not as bad as I think, but we all understand that it's a bad situation, it's just not right. It brings about a sense of negativity. When you try to comfort someone in a situation where they know it's meaningless, I don't do that. So let's make it clear right from the start, my friends. This piece is neither flattery nor consolation. My sole mission is to present you with the truth based on my daily observations. And I will illustrate this with examples that you will immediately grasp, as you have been part of them as well. Now, let's delve into the first example. Most of us, in the afternoon, tend to move around, right, because it's time to head home. If you live in big cities, you'll often encounter a common annoyance known as traffic congestion. Yes, traffic jams. My friends, regardless of your mode of transport, be it walking, you'll still find some discomfort. If you walk, you'll tire from the long distances. If you opt for cycling, motorbikes, or cars, you'll face the same frustration. Even back in the day, when I used to take the bus regularly, we thought that being on the bus was a remedy, but the truth is, it's just as exasperating. When you're stuck in traffic down on the road, the bus is also crammed full. Many times, I'd be standing, not even getting a seat. And you know how sluggish it moves, standing or sitting squished together, it's truly exhausting. So, I dare say no one likes being stuck in traffic, don't you agree? However, there's another aspect of this situation that, from time to time, might make you ponder. It's when you're caught in that traffic jam. And occasionally, you'll encounter a scenario that's truly worth contemplating. You might witness an ambulance. Right? Seeing an ambulance navigating through a sea of congestion is more than just stirring. Using the term stirring isn't quite adequate. We need a word that accurately captures the sentiment. When you imagine the person inside that vehicle, their loved one facing a health crisis, they urgently need to rush. But the traffic is at a complete standstill. Despite honking the horn, they can only inch forward, bit by bit, and it's undeniably heart-wrenching. Yet, fortunately, I believe that most people possess a beautiful soul. Motorcyclists swerve onto the shoulder to make way for the ambulance or fire truck, while cars swiftly shift into a lane, or even come to a halt. In those moments, ladies and gentlemen on the road, they're undoubtedly doing something good, something meaningful for someone dealing with a health emergency in that ambulance, aren't they? That is indeed a good thing, my friends. And it holds great significance. Just by observing, you can clearly understand that those individuals in the ambulance would be profoundly grateful to you if you yield the right of way, if you come to a stop and make way on the shoulder, if you create a clear path for them to pass through and reach the hospital. That is a meaningful act. However, this meaningful act is easy to see and hasn't yet been connected to something larger. For instance, let's imagine the perspective of a person inside that ambulance. Besides their gratitude towards those drivers who allowed a clear path, and their appreciation for the motorcyclists who moved aside, there's actually another, less visible entity. This entity plays a role even more significant than those who made way for the ambulance. Do you know who this entity is? It's the individuals who chose not to be on the road at that moment. Have you noticed this aspect? Realistically, those individuals on the road who yield and let the vehicle pass, they do something good. However, regardless, they still occupy a portion of the road, correct? The most significant contribution in this situation comes from those who do not step onto the road at that time. Wouldn't you agree? But if we don't pay attention, we won't notice that they are the most crucial factor in allowing the ambulance or fire truck to pass. So, my dear friends, it might sound a bit amusing, but around 5 or 6 in the evening, anyone who, for instance, doesn't go out on the road still leaves a very important meaning in a particular situation, while many people stay at home without any intention of doing something good, without any specific purpose. They might be at home playing games, staying at the office for an extra half hour to chat with friends, waiting for colleagues to finish work so they can go out to eat. They don't have the intention of doing something good. However, this world is interconnected in a tremendous way, and sometimes you don't realize that you are doing something incredibly meaningful for someone else. And when I look at this, I realize that if we pay a little attention, we can feel that life has a significant connection. And we can become immensely meaningful individuals just by recognizing where that meaning lies. The purpose of today's episode is to bring you a truth, which is evident, simple, and mundane, yet truly meaningful. It generates genuine gratitude from others, and it can potentially save another life, not just a simple act, of course. I'm not saying to stay indoors and not go out. If you have things need to be done, you still need to go out. What I mean is that in any situation, you can still create a meaningful action, and often, many of your unintentional actions have already held significance, you just may not realize it. Now, I'm sharing this with you so that you can appreciate yourself more, so that you can recognize that your existence, your behaviors, your actions in this world are not meaningless. This is a truth without flattery or consolation, but simply to help you understand and value yourself better. Now, let's consider another example of the significance in our lives, the profound connections among people in this world. Just by recognizing these connections, we can experience great happiness and inner peace. Let me share another example related to traffic. I've thought about this extensively because I simply want to find an example that everyone can relate to, as it's easier to understand when we see ourselves in it. Choosing an example from a field that may be unfamiliar to many could make them feel disconnected, as they lack experience and familiarity. So, I'm going back to the topic of traffic. When you're on the road, do you honk your horn? Honking My dear listeners, now, let me ask you, what is the purpose of a horn? The purpose of a horn is to alert others in unexpected situations, while participating in traffic, isn't it? That's its function. A horn is designed to communicate information, particularly in surprising or urgent circumstances. We use the horn. Yet when we're out on the road, we observe that, in the majority of cases, the horn is not being used for its intended purpose. Here's something amusing to note. While reading Mo Gaudat's book Solve for Happy, Engineer Your Path to Joy, there's an storiette about the author's own child. The child had read a book that compiled a list of seemingly ordinary things, but these things turned out to be true, and remarkably interesting. Indeed, in that book, it's noted that around 90% of horn honking in the United States is used as a substitute for cursing. If you watch movies or videos from traffic cameras, you'll often see that when people honk their horns, they're actually using it to express frustration or anger at each other rather than for its intended purpose of communication. I mean, when you're stuck in heavy traffic, what are you really communicating by honking? A little nudge here and there. It doesn't really serve its purpose in such situations. Of course, there are still some individuals who use their horns correctly, adhering to the intended function of alerting others in unexpected situations. Besides using horn honking as a replacement for cursing, there are indeed broader purposes that are quite common. First, it's used for asserting dominance. And second, it's used for intimidation. Have you ever thought about it? Asserting dominance involves honking to claim a portion of the road, and this is quite evident when pedestrians continuously press the horn. Their purpose is to signal to those driving in the same direction to yield and let them pass, which is an act of asserting dominance. Although, as you know, using the horn to demand the right of way for pedestrians is not the correct approach. But let's leave the debate of right and wrong aside for now. I'm just sharing the story that horns are often used for asserting dominance and, more strongly, for intimidation. Have you ever noticed drivers honking whenever a vehicle is ahead of them? If someone is driving on their intended path, they honk. What's the message here? It's a request for the other vehicle to change lanes and let the honking driver proceed straight. This happens regardless of whether the vehicles involved are large or small, doesn't it? It brings up a thought-provoking question. Is excessive horn honking a good or bad behavior? It's indeed a broad question, and opinions may vary. Some might argue that it's necessary to assert one's presence and communicate in traffic, while others might find it disruptive and unnecessary. It's a balance between expressing oneself and being considerate of others. Now, let's delve deeper into the scenario during rush hour when many people are on the road and are passively subjected to the honking sounds, even if they don't want to hear them. In such situations, there could be individuals who are ill, dealing with psychological issues, had a tough day, have heart conditions, or pregnant women. When drivers honk continuously, these individuals might hear the honking, which can have negative effects on them. For instance, I ask all of you if you're aware of this information already. If you understand that there will be individuals like that listening to the sound of your horn. Now, let me pose an honest question. Do you want to honk your horn in that line of vehicles? Let's say there are a few pregnant women. A honk startles them. Do you still want to honk your horn? Here arises an action that I believe holds significance. You gift life a profound serenity, one that can be immediately implemented, whether it's this afternoon or tomorrow. You can bestow upon existence a moment of tranquility. It's a proactive action. Refraining from thoughtless honking. Up until now, I've been discussing the perils of the horn, and I'm showing you an image of who might be affected by that sound. You understand that you might not control the actions of those recklessly honking, but you still possess a beautiful action to offer to life, albeit silently and unnoticed. It's a proactive act, a gentle assertion of your intent to refrain from honking thoughtlessly. By refraining from honking thoughtlessly, by reducing one unnecessary honk, those who are having a bad day do not have to hear that honk. Pregnant women do not have to hear that honk. Those struggling with depression do not have to hear that honk. Those dealing with internal illnesses do not have to hear that honk. And those who may have just been fired by their boss do not have to hear that honk, which makes their day even worse. This is still a beautiful way to enrich life. If you view it from this perspective, Everything in life can be turned into an art form. A way to beautify existence, let me tell you. The act of not honking when you're on the road is not passivity, it's not indifference. It's a choice. I only honk when necessary to communicate something. For instance, if someone is about to make a reckless overtaking maneuver and I see an oncoming vehicle ahead, I will honk repeatedly to prevent them from overtaking. It's a safety alert. However, when I'm driving and there's a car in front of me in a traffic jam, what's the point of honking? Continuous honking in such a situation serves either to vent frustration or to compete for space. It doesn't carry any positive meaning. Doing something good is actually quite simple. Doing something meaningful is quite straightforward, my friends. Honestly, it's truly wonderful. Once, I passed through a traffic light. Suddenly, a wave of joy washed over me, because in that moment, no one honked their horns when the light turned green. I savored that fleeting moment and couldn't help but feel grateful. Thank you to all of us for collectively gifting life with tranquility. If we don't take the time to reflect, we might perceive this as ordinary, and when we do, we realize that the world is actually quite beautiful. Even on a road where 100 people are moving around you, perhaps only 5 or 6 are honking their horns. The majority, about 90%, are good people. At least good in the sense that they refrain from unnecessary honking. Then you'll realize that life isn't as dark as you might have thought. There is still so much goodness and beauty in the world, isn't there? Now, let's explore another example of meaningful action. Reading books and studying. This alone constitutes a kind and worthwhile pursuit in our lives. For instance, when I sit down to read, there are benefits to me, that's for sure. I gain knowledge, broaden my understanding, and who knows? The information I acquire might be something few people know. It's possible that the piece of information I'm reading could be hidden on page 400 of a 600-page book. You see, a 600-page book is already a challenge for many to read. And if the valuable information is tucked away on page 400, even fewer will come across it. This could be a piece of valuable knowledge that I possess and that only a handful of people know. Why? Firstly, during the time I spend engrossed in reading, I'm less likely to engage in online arguments or conflicts on social media. So, those online battles are minus one participant, me. Allow me to share a whimsical thought that might arise when you delve into spiritual works, exploring the concept of oneness and your purpose in life. In fact, this notion has a profound impact on all of us. As you grasp this concept on a deeper level, you'll realize that living in this world, you naturally yearn to do good, this inclination to extend its influence even to the entire world. I might use the term universe, but I assure you, I'm not floating on a cloud. Now, let's return to an example. Imagine you have an aunt who works at a publishing company as an editor. This year, luckily, that company has had several best-selling books that have generated immense profits. I happen to be one of the contributors who purchased these bestsellers, and I don't have any personal connection to your aunt. I simply found the books to be excellent, so I bought them. I played a part in purchasing one of these best-selling books, and I went onto various book-selling websites to give it a 5-star rating. The popularity of the book spreads even further. Not only did I rate it 5 stars, but I also wrote a 100-word review. Potential readers and customers come across this review and think, this book must be really good, and they decide to buy it. As more people buy the book, the company sells more copies, making a substantial profit for the year. As a result, when the new year comes around, your aunt receives a lavish bonus due to the company's exceptional performance this year. So, your aunt gives you a bigger present during the New Year day than usual. It's amusing how the underlying cause is so deeply connected. This world is intricately intertwined. When you do something good, someone else reaps the benefits, and the positive effects spread. Even if you don't perceive the interconnection or link, it still operates in some way. If you have the time, I encourage you to explore the concept of interconnectedness from both Western and Eastern spiritual teachings. It's truly fascinating. In a book like The Holes, for example, this concept is also mentioned. We always live with meaning, following a certain pattern. There's a very insightful saying, first, to help the poor. Don't become one of them. Do you think it's accurate? You want to assist those in need. First and foremost, ensure that you are not impoverished. You don't take away from the rewards meant for the poor. No competition, just set aside a portion, leaving a surplus for those less fortunate. This perspective is valid as well. It's akin to a cake on a table, a cake divided into 10 slices, but with 11 people now. If you refrain from having a piece, wouldn't the remaining 10 portions be sufficient for them, honestly? That's already a meaningful notion. You would still help others in some way. Although the initial benefit may belong to you, you have no intention of being virtuous, yet you still act virtuously because you're doing something good. In essence, if you want to become wealthy, you have to pass through the intermediate step of not being poor. Once you're no longer in poverty, who knows, in the future you might be more comfortable, have more abundance, and at that point, you can turn back and help those less fortunate even more. This, in turn, adds another layer of meaning to your actions. However, in reality, you don't necessarily have to reach the point of handing out money to others to make a positive impact. Simply being no longer impoverished is already beneficial for both yourself and others. After this discussion, I really hope you all realize how incredibly interconnected life is. Everything is intertwined, even your action, if it truly is a good and virtuous act. Even if you're doing it for yourself, the world still benefits from it. Even a simple action like not going out at rush hour has the potential to make you a better person, even if you didn't intend it that way. It's all about understanding this interconnectedness. So, let's continue to do good deeds, even the smallest ones. Take the initiative to recognize the significance of these good deeds. It's truly wonderful. This applies even to those working in coffee shops. I understand that the wages are low, and I never advise or encourage anyone to stay there forever. However, I still hope that you can find happiness in your work, just by realizing the meaning of what you're doing. Though you go there to earn money, to work extra, to make ends meet, and you may not have the intention of being a good person, you should still see the value in what you're doing. You're working at that place. You're serving those who come in with their laptops to work. You're contributing to creating an environment for freelancers and independent workers. Many people sit in that coffee shop, and many of them have families to support, wives, children, households. They're putting in a lot of effort. They're trying really hard, and you're making the best cup of coffee you can, serving them, providing them with a peaceful place to work. I believe that truly holds significant meaning. You step into the coffee shop, especially in the morning. They greet you with a smile, asking what you'd like to drink. Thanking you, they lend a hand in making your day better, too. I'm the one who realizes these meanings, and I really hope you do too. You should recognize the significance of what you're doing. It's not meaningless at all. And if you broaden your perspective, taxi drivers, mail carriers, they all have meaningful roles in this life. You must see the significance of your actions. When you live without dissatisfaction, when you're happy, you'll have more energy to study, to live, to enjoy, to interact, and the good and beautiful things will come to your life. Allow me to conclude this article by saying, you're living a meaningful life. And I've just proven that to you. In the end, I want to wish all of you once again to always hold onto the meaning in your life. If you grasp that tightly, you won't get lost in this journey of life. Let's all strive together. If you enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing. Feel free to leave your thoughts or comments. If you appreciate content like this and would like to support me, you can contribute via PayPal address in my description. Each contribution you make serves as a motivation to help further develop the quality of my content. Now, it's time to say goodbye, and I really look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you all very much.